I think there are opportunities to improve policing, but actually we want to make sure that a top-down reform like this isn't going to undermine community and local policing. There are concerns about what is a decade of reform. Apparently these plans are going to take a decade to roll out. We're concerned about what that means for a lack of confidence in policing. And actually, when it comes down to it, this is a distraction from Labour's record on policing. They've took 1,300 police off the streets. They're letting prisoners out early onto our streets. Police force across the country facing a £500 million shortfall this year. As a result, crime is surging on everyday sorts of crime, like shoplifting, which is up 13%, reaching a record level. We'll look at the detail and see what's coming forward. I think there's concerns about what that means, actually, because already we've seen Labour slashing the number of police on our streets. There is concerns about ever bigger forces. We've seen what happened in Police Scotland when you roll it into one big mighty force, what that means for local accountability, what it means for local priority setting. We need forces that are responsive to the communities they serve. If forces get too big, there are concerns that might not happen. We've been asking for this. We think that Chief Constable should well and truly have been sacked for what went on with regards to that football match and the policing that was done around it.
National push that might make a difference.
Yeah. Get all the big retailers really on what we found is that how they do it, they make our life so easy. So we do the job of our work with them on the basis that we know we approach it.
Take place.
Yeah.
But we are here from last week, as I told you.
Yeah.
So
been here a while.
Yeah. So there's no problem.
And have you had to take other measures yourself to try and put people off trying to steal from the shop? And
Yeah.
Because retailers, and well, I said boots.
do they have a security guard as well?
They've got a security guard in there. I was speaking to him earlier. I'm on duty because I know them all.
Yeah.
But again, Tesco's have improved recently, so we are now. Before we had struggles with the boss there was saying about the new platform that a lot of retailers are using.
This is the main command suite, and obviously, as you'll probably recall, Silver's next door.
Yes, yeah.
So this gives us the opportunity to keep a very close eye on one of our teams within. So my day job is intelligence and covert policing. So we have a department with scientists and designers that are building and 3D printing cameras.
Oh wow!
So where we have a CCTV gap, for example, on New Year's Eve, at Primrose Hill, furniture, and have a really good coverage in those gaps.
And is it a temporary? So you take it off?
Yes, so we
is
put it up.
A limited functionality, or?
Yeah, so we wire it in, so we can have it for as long as we need it.
Right.
So the battery doesn't run out. Person falling off, so there's no risk
so it's
there.
a safe way of disabling the.
And it's looking at putting it in the right place. We're trialling it now around how can we get it in the right place. Understand if it goes past a certain zone, we know then the trajectory it's going, the speed it's going, and the idea is to match the speed with the firing of the.
Oh wow! So that's a combo of data analytics,
absolutely,
some live trialling, that basically send people out to get photos.
Theft handling, snatches, dippers, all of that stuff. We've got some real innovation coming in, which I'll pass to my colleague around in a minute, and he'll talk to you about. Live facial recognition deployments, and we've got it's exciting. There are 17 sub operations, and just lots of activity week to week.
Okay, great.
So I'm Silver.
Pickpockets, as we see, so these are known pickpocketers. We've also got trained specialist officers from the MO2 sat in our operations room. We would also normally be using a drone to support these. About 10.
Just other policy areas, is the government set to announce a reduction in the number of police forces?
I'm not aware of that announcement. I know that we have announced, we have delivered thousands more police officers and PCSOs onto our streets. We are dealing with issues like antisocial behaviour, cracking down on shoplifting. Our police do an outstanding job in terms of keeping our communities safe, and our government is absolutely committed to supporting them.
I mean, you say you're not aware of these proposals, but they've been briefed quite widely in the press overnight and this morning. I mean, what's your message to the public who will be reading some of these reports and being quite concerned if this is going to impact the police's ability to tackle crime?
Well, I think the organisation is not always what determines the best outcomes. Keeping the organisation of anything as it is isn't all necessarily always the best way to deliver the best outcome. So if there is a need for reform, and if you can clearly show that by reforming the way an organisation works, you can make it more effective, more streamlined, then of course that's something that we should always look at. Any government worth its salt will always be ready to make changes. Just look at what we've done in terms of abolishing NHS England, cutting out those additional layers and improving the direct lines of accountability from people working at the coalface in our health and care system all the way up to ministers like me without too many layers in between. Accountability, leadership, organizations that deliver, that are as efficient and productive as possible. That's our watchword for everything we want to do as a government. And of course, the police would be no different to any other institution in that context.
I'm really nervous about the struggling criminal justice system. Government has clearly got a series of reforms they've announced recently and work they're doing to try and fix that. We need repeat offenders to be remanded in custody. We need to be able to protect communities from the most dangerous people. With a court system that works quickly, I'm massively frustrated that we are now charging people with offences in London and their court date is 2030. As a victim of crime, that will never ever feel like justice. That actually the police have caught the guy who stole my phone or the person who indecently assaulted me. There's the good news, and then a few months later, when the listing process has gone through the courts and it's 2030, that's not acceptable. Clearly, government aren't pretending it is, and they've got a series of reforms they're looking to bring in, and I hope they can move those numbers quickly because that is absolutely vital. And I can see, I share the officer's frustration in terms of it's difficult if the people you're constantly arresting aren't getting the weight of the law that affects their behaviour.
We also saw that although shootings are on a downward trend or trajectory, there were also an increase in fatalities per injury, and it seemed, or it was shown, that criminals were using more lethal weapons. How concerned are you about that?
So I think, as you know, we've seized more firearms and more knives in the last year than previously. So it's about 700, just short of 700 firearms. I think as you restrict the availability, I'm not surprised that there's a small number of firearms, ones maybe left, maybe the ones that have been brought in with lethal intent and have been manufactured for that purpose. So that's a constant battle. We have seen over time changes in the nature of firearms on the streets of London. So some time ago, in the 20 noughties and the teens, some of the sort of firearms that came across Europe on the back of the wars in the Balkans, for example, influenced it. More recently, we've had convertible blank firing pistols coming from Eastern Europe and elsewhere. So the weaponry is constantly changing. We're anxious about a future if 3D printed weapons become a an issue of scale. So that's always changing, and the lethality of those weapons changes, but we will keep adapting our tactics and keep bearing down on it, such as the sort of weapons factories we've taken out, the work we've done with the National Crime Agency, catching importers of weapons into the country, and the day-to-day work catching criminals in London with firearms. And I think our very, very tough firearms laws in the UK give us a unique opportunity compared to many other countries, because criminals will not routinely hold a firearm because they know they're going to get several years in prison. That means that if they're planning to use one, they have to make arrangements, and in the making arrangements gives us intelligence opportunities to intercept them. So we'll keep bringing it down. It won't be a completely smooth ride, but you can see the effect in terms of shootings halved in a few years. That's quite remarkable, and that's that constant downward pressure. You can't do that in a few months. That's year after year relentlessness.
Has smashing the gangs been a failure, Secretary of State? Has President Trump broken international law, Secretary of State?